Hey everybody, it's Chris from Redzone here with another video. I'm here with Ramon.
Yep, I'm here. It's Ramon from retzone.ca. So yeah, welcome. Welcome to this video right here. This is the Coleco Vision expansion module number 1. Insert cartridge here. So you're probably wondering, what is this thing? Like, it doesn't look like a console much. Like, look at the back. It's like, what is that thing? Well, let me get Chris to actually give you the backstory on like what exactly this thing is.
Yes, today we're talking about all the devices I own that play Atari cartridges and what happened in the courts related to them. So Atari came out with the 2600 Heavy Sixer in approximately 1978, and it was a huge hit and also contributed to the huge game crash in 1983, but that's a story for another time. This was making huge dollars. ColecoVision wanted some of that money, so they came out with their ColecoVision later. I'm not sure of the date. I want to say early 80s, like...
Yeah, it would have been way after the Atari, so...
81, 82
yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, so you can clearly see that at the time, the ColecoVision, if we're talking spec-wise, the ColecoVision was way better in specs. Like, we're talking better graphics, you know, way better than what the Atari could ever push out. And even to an extent, I think its biggest competitor as well was the Intellivision.
Yeah,
and that, like, the ColecoVision was like, you know, we're talking nearly NES like quality graphics.
It's pretty close, yeah. The Atari 2600, I believe, is based on a 6502 processor,
yeah,
or something similar to it. And the ColecoVision had a Zilog Z80 in it, running at 8 or 10 megahertz, which allowed it to push out slightly better graphics. So, but Atari had the developers under their wings, so they were able to push out many, many games. And so Coleco wanted a piece of the pie, so they came out with this device. You plug it into the front of your ColecoVision, and you could play the huge, huge library of Atari cartridges that existed, as opposed to the ColecoVision library, which I think is around 160 games.
Yeah, it wasn't really that big, so you can kind of see like how Coleco wanted that piece of the pie, basically. So they made this thing, and you know, it's kind of clever how they were able to do this. And I know, like, we're gonna get to the part where it's like Atari basically said, "Yeah, please don't do that." So, here's expansion module number 1, ColecoVision. Insert cartridge here.
This piece of what a piece of garbage right into the trash.
That's a freaking thing. Oh. I'm like, this thing is like, this is actually pretty bulky. Like, you know, you can feel the weight on this thing. Like, there's really stuff in there. It doesn't really rattle.
This is a time where people bought stuff and they expected to feel the value in the weight.
Yeah, and I'm not sure you can see that there. It says Coleco Canada right there, and it seems to be an address in Montreal, Quebec.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what's in that address now. So if anybody in the comments wants to put in like what's in this address, so that'll be interesting. It says made in the USA. So yeah, so
maybe future me will pop in a Google Images, Google Maps image of what's there now. I'm actually quite interested.
Yeah.
So ColecoVision started selling this. They didn't ask for Atari's permission, and they assumed that they didn't need permission. And Atari sued them and took them to court. So an early console like the Atari here is basically, at a very base level, just a bunch of chips that run machine code at a very basic level. So there's no BIOS, there's no firmware, there's nothing, there's no copyright or anything like that. So ColecoVision's argument was that you could go to any electronics store, buy the same components off of a shelf and make your own Atari without infringing on any copyright, because it just runs on, you know, available to the public components. And the courts sided with Coleco on this and told Atari that they couldn't stop them because they're absolutely right. Now, later Atari consoles like the 5200 and the 7800 then had a BIOS, then had firmware. The Atari 5200 is basically an Atari 800 8-bit computer. So it runs BASIC and has a firmware and stuff. So if they tried to copy that, then that would be copyright infringement.
Right, right. So you can clearly see that Atari wasn't pleased that, I mean, it's kind of Atari's fault for having off-the-shelf parts, so it's like they couldn't really copyright that. So that's kind of the shame of the Atari 2600. So yeah, until the 5200 and the 7800, then anybody was basically able to make a clone. So that segues into what we're actually talking about here.
Yes.
So Coleco made not just this expansion module, which is already pretty ballsy, I gotta say. There's the other thing that Coleco made that I'm not sure if everybody's aware of. So let's put it out here now.
Yeah. So because of Coleco winning the litigation in the courts, they decided to make their own Atari called the Gemini. Now, I don't know how popular these were in other areas, but I knew a few kids that had them when I was a kid, and that's how I know about it. So it's basically a Coleco-made Atari 2600 that Atari could do nothing about because it's basically made from all off-the-shelf components. There's nothing copyrighted in this.
Right, it's kind of interesting that Coleco basically made what is essentially a Coleco branded Atari 2600. It was like nothing was like the courts basically said you can do this, and it's like it'll be legal and you'll be fine.
The only thing that would be copyright infringing is Coleco started making their own Atari cartridges, because the design of the Atari cartridge itself is patented. So
right. See at the back here, there's the serial number right there. It says made in Taiwan, so I guess they were starting to outsource the production of these. But as you can see, you got the cartridge slot right here. Then you got the basic switches. What you expect from like an Atari system. So you got color, selection, reset. Since this hails from I think this is the Canadian version because there is like the French. The French counterpart of the word, so...
Yeah, I actually have two of these Geminis, and they both have French on it, so I don't know if there was a non-French version, because Coleco is a French-Canadian company, so... Right.
So you basically get all the feature sets from Atari 2600, except, honestly, it's smaller than, a really normal Atari 2600, so... we do have the 2600 Junior for comparison, so let's bring that out now.
Yeah, this is the Junior that came out later. I'm not sure when the Junior came up. Future me will add the date on the screen there. I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, actually, sorry, it's 86. It's 1986. It's on the back of this box here, so.
Yeah, this thing even has the price tag on it. Like, what was that?
59.88. I wonder what that would be in today's money.
Yeah, adjusted for inflation, I guess it would be still pretty cheap because at this point, the point of the Junior was to basically sell the 2600 at a cheaper price. But as you can clearly see, on top of each other, you can clearly see the Atari is smaller.
I like the Gemini design better because in this one, like the 2600, you have to plug in the controllers in the back and then loop them over the top of the console, as opposed to these have them just in the front here. This makes more sense to me. This might have been a decision due to budget. I mean, it might be cheaper to put them on the back, because then there's less, PCB that you need and stuff like that. I mean, I can understand why they did that, but yeah. I actually like the Gemini. It's a solid unit. It's kind of built. It's not heavy. It isn't, but it's built a little. I would say a little better in some respects to the 2600 Junior, but it is a clone system, so as clone as they want it to be. It is basically made from the same off-the-shelf parts that make the 2600 tick. No, I apologize. I should have brought one of the controllers to show. I'll put a picture of the controller on the screen.
Yeah, because they even have their own branded Gemini controllers. So I found that rather interesting. That if you did the console already, might as well do the controller.
Yeah, and I actually like the controller. I don't mind the controller at all. I like the fact that the joystick and the paddle are combined into one thing, because it's always a pain in the ass to have to unplug your joystick, plug in the stupid paddles, untangle the cables, play your paddle game, get bored of that, and then flip it back to the, you know, blah, 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 the joystick.
Yeah.
But this is like all in one. Like I said, I'll flash a picture up on the screen here so you know what we're talking about here.
So I'm guessing we're wondering is, did Coleco made a better Atari 2600 than what Atari was doing themselves? Because this is not a bad system, to be honest. I mean, it does what you need it to. It plays 2600 games.
And
so.
it's very solid. It's, you know, not flimsy or anything. I mean, it's not a knockoff. It's a nice clone. I mean, this is nice and solid too. You know, like these, you know, 20, you know, the heavy sixer and this, you know,
The
junior sixer, whatever you want to call it. You know, they're built like tanks. They last forever. I have two of these. They're the same age, and I have no problems with them. The picture quality is, I think, a little better on these, but that might be because they're slightly newer.
Right. So probably Coleco had, you know, maybe they took a look at the 2600 design and was like, okay, we can make it a little better in this respect, and nobody's gonna stop us anyway. I mean, you compare it to like this thing, this expansion module number 1, and like this is heavier, but remember, this requires an additional console to work.
Yes.
So, you know, again, Coleco wasn't really, you know, violating anything when they made this. It's off-the-shelf parts. You nobody can argue that, you know, if it's off-the-shelf parts, anybody can do that.
And this is quite sturdy. Like, this is like tank-like. Like, we got a metal door here. I mean, this thing is like super sturdy. Like, this is like even more tank-like than the heavy sixer. Like, it's quite nice.
I mean, right. I mean, this could pass off as its own console. You just need like a power supply and maybe AV out, and it would function on its own. But remember, this only works if you have a ColecoVision already. And the ColecoVision, if we were to put one here right now, that would totally eclipse in size all of these. It's like that's easily bigger than all of these right here.
Oh yeah, the Coleco is huge. And I mean, if you've ever taken apart a Coleco, half of it is just empty space. Like, the PCB is from here to here, and the rest of it is just empty space.
It's absolutely insane on what they did with ColecoVision for sure. So yeah, so this is the Gemini. If you haven't heard of it, now you know what it is. And you know, I'd say, is it worth collecting?
I think so. I wanted one because I played one as a kid, and I liked it. And it was Coleco. I like Coleco because it's a Canadian company. I'm Canadian, and they are, I'll be honest, they're relatively worthless. So you could probably pick one up pretty cheap.
I mean, 2600s. Unless you're looking at we're talking like heavy sixers or something. Like we're talking the original like Sunnyvale made consoles or something. Then you're looking at what price range have you seen these for lately anyway?
Facebook Marketplace, as of a couple days ago, I see people listing 2600 heavy sixers for $150.
Right, so at the time of this video, then that should be the base price you're expecting to pay.
This one cost me $40 last summer of 2021, and I literally had someone give me another one.
And
I'm like, do you want anything for it? And the guy's like, no, you can just take it. I don't need it anymore. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I like these. I don't mind having a couple. I mean, one can be parts.
I mean, yeah, like how many of these Gemini consoles do you have now?
2. I have 2.
Right.
I have 2 of these, and 1 heavy sixer.
Right. And honestly, even the name itself, like it says Gemini, it's like it literally says this is a clone.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a twin. Yeah.
I mean, they weren't wrong. It's like you can never get away with this kind of thing anymore. It's like this is basically the same story as like the IBM PC. The only thing that the IBM PC was like, what we would call proprietary was the BIOS.
Yeah.
That was really it. Anybody can make a clone. So.
And at one point, I had 3 of these. I believe I sold one to you. Did I sell it to you?
Yeah, I do have one of these in my possession. It is a bit scuffed up, but this is the thing that I don't like about these. Is like they tend to scratch pretty easy unless you have a protector on them. And it's like
That's why I've left on the original protector.
I'm like,
I have a boxed one here. I'm not sure if it's got the protector on it or not, but it's starting to come off a little bit here, but I'm just going to leave it on.
Right. So, yeah, this is what we wanted to talk about. The whole Coleco Gemini affair, and it's like we are wondering how on earth Coleco got away with it, and now that you're looking at it, the off-the-shelf parts, they totally could.
Yeah, and they lost the court case, and Atari hated Coleco afterwards because they made their own cartridge and they could play the... I'm not even sure how many games exist for 2600, but I'm going to say between 300 and 500. Like, it's a huge library because there's so many unlicensed third-party games for the Atari.
Yeah. That's what people say. When you claim what caused the video game crash, like we're talking just the North American video game crash, because remember, you folks in Europe didn't really have a crash like that. You had home computers.
Yeah.
Here in North America, it's basically after that, nobody wanted to buy consoles. Like, we just had like a bunch of clones, and nobody really wanted to do anything with consoles anymore. Like maybe if you had like a computer, then maybe it made sense. But really, Coleco may have won this little battle, but in terms of the war, they still lost, just like Atari did. So they just got wiped out, and from here, Nintendo takes over, really. And, that's how history is done.
Yeah, after the video game crash, I believe that arcades and home computers kept the video game market, on life support until Nintendo came out with their entertainment system in 86?
Around, it was 85,
86.
They had the test market going on for 85, so...
I think it came out in Canada in 86.
Right. But that's
and
beyond...
then Nintendo blew everybody out of the water. Like,
totally, they blew it out of the water. But that's like beyond the scope of this video. We just wanted to talk about the Gemini right here, and just how Coleco basically just got away with it.
Pissed off Atari for eternity, so...
So, yeah. Like, brave move, Coleco. Too bad you just didn't survive like the crash. So you were great once. Too bad you didn't just live long enough to actually be able to profit off these for like years. So
well, after the video game crash, Coleco got out of electronics completely because they also had the Coleco Atom.
Yeah, we just that would be, because we mentioned this was module number 1. That was module number 2, I believe, unless it was the steering wheel. There was the steering wheel add-on.
Oh, yeah. So, well, there was an add-on that you could turn your Coleco into a Coleco Atom, or there was the standalone Coleco Atom. But anyway, after they got out of electronics, they got into stuffed toys. So you could go and buy Coleco stuffed toys, which to me seems really odd,
Yeah, it's a weird turnaround.
From something like this to stuffed animals is so weird, but that's what they did afterwards. I don't know if they exist today. Future me will pop up something on here to see if they folded or not.
Maybe as a brand name they exist, just like Atari's technically still around.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, it's also similar in fate to Mattel, because Mattel, they're, a lot of people know them as like the Barbie company. Let's be real. It's like that's their claim to fame, and other toys.
Well, yeah, for me it was weird seeing Mattel on Canadian Nintendos, because Mattel distributed it for Nintendo in Canada. I don't know if they did it for US, but in Canada they did, and I'm like, oh, so the Barbie company's into video games now, but they were just helping out. And another side note is that actually when Nintendo was trying to break into the North American market, they were actually talking to Atari first to get them to build the NESs in North America and sell them. But Atari and Nintendo couldn't come to an agreement, so then they decided they would just manufacture them in Japan and then get Mattel to distribute them in Canada. Like, there might have been Atari-branded Nintendo cartridges if that deal had gone through.
Yeah, and that was a very real thing. So that's probably probably a topic we can cover. Like,
I don't know if Jack Tramiel was involved with that particular decision, but I don't know if that would have saved Atari or if that would have ruined Nintendo. Yeah, because Atari wasn't known for their smart decisions.
Yeah, and at this point, Atari was like, they were trying for sure. Yeah. But at this point, it's like it's after the crash, and it's like, well, Atari, you love it for the 2600, but not much after that.
Yeah.
Let's be real. And yeah, I guess we can wrap this up for the whole Gemini affair. So Yep, please like, comment, subscribe to retzone.ca for more great content. So,
I think you just gave the title of the video. The Gemini Affair.
yep, the Gemini Affair. Yeah, we should totally put that as the actual title of the video for sure.
All right, that's it for this Retzone video. Thank
Right.
you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And, wait for more great content from retzone.ca.
All right, we will catch you later.
See ya.
Bye.